Hello everybody, I am the White Angel and I am a conservative. So today I wanted to address reactionaries and their dangers, and why reactionaries are so dangerous. Now, first I'm going to address the difference between researchers and reactionaries. First, I want to talk about researchers. Researchers are people who, when they encounter a problem, whether they experience it themselves as the victim or they witness it, they're really not sure what exactly is going on. Yes, they're in pain, yes, it hurts, but they don't know why. They feel under attack or like someone else is under attack, but the source of the information is unknown. And they want to help, but they don't know how. So they research the issue. They get an ear to the ground, they get out into the real world, they look up data online, they find information in books and in history, and they research the hell out of the problem and try to come up with a solution. Reactionaries are people who see the problem or experience the problem and then immediately just begin reacting right away. They start going, they go reeing into the night, just reacting to everything without researching. And they go into it head first, headlong. Gotta tackle it right now, there's no time. And a lot of the time they're just fucking ignorant. They're hella ignorant. And they need to stay the hell away from the issue until they know what the fuck they're doing. Even if it's a problem that they themselves experience, that they as a person get to experience. It's seriously important. Alright? This is also clearly highlighting the difference in attitude between right-wingers and left-wingers. The number of left-wingers who actually research are dwindling, while the number who are typically reactionaries are growing. The number of leftists that I personally know, whether they be liberal or illiberal, who actually do research, went from 4 to 2. And I've had many people on the right wing and other conservatives who said the exact same thing. Like any leftists, left-wingers they knew, immediately they began to dwindle. And there's more and more reactionaries getting more and more attention. And there's fewer and fewer left-wing personalities who actually do research, if only they don't openly admit it. Now, researching on the right has not necessarily increased, but it has stayed roughly the same. Are there right-wing reactionaries? Of course there are. But they're a very loud minority. Most right-wingers do the research and they do the experience. That is how they do it. So why is the left so reactionary? Well, that really kind of has to do with how left-wing politics work. They have 2 moral values, of the 8 political pillars. The 8 values or 8 pillars test. I'll put a link in the description below so you can take it and see tell me what you got. See what you think of it. But generally speaking, these are known pillars. Left-wingers, liberals have only 2, care and fairness. And it's arguable that illiberal, that is the far left, have no morals. Just whatever is politically convenient for them at the time. Their actions would bear that out. But left-wingers in general have only care and fairness. Right-wingers have more than that. We have care, we have fairness, we have tradition, we have sanctity, and we have national identity. That's 5. Which is often why left-wingers don't understand people on the right, at all. They don't get us because their view of the world is less complete and less nuanced than ours. They have one view, care and fairness. That's it. And then, generally speaking, the ideas of care and fairness appeal heavily to emotion. They're very emotional. And when you look at the kind of things the left wing tends to promote, socialism, communism, and many other isms, they frequently have a very sugar-coated, isn't this lovely, it has a very emotional appeal. The left wing appeals to emotional people. And people who are driven primarily by their feelings are more likely to be reactionary. If you're not driven by logic, that generally means you're probably a reactionary. Most of the time. It's not always the case, but it's frequently the truth. Now, here's why the right wing is generally more logical. Because not only do we have care and fairness, we have national identity, sanctity, and economics. What is sacred? What is traditional? What is our identity? And we arguably have a better sense of economics. Because we like to conserve money and not to spend it if we don't have to. We want to make sure that the money is going where it should be going. In order to conserve, you need logic. You need to look at, because logic, you need to be able to look at the past, analyze the past, know why your predecessors and your ancestors did a thing, and why you should keep doing it. That requires logic. That requires research. That requires that you understand things. The same goes with national identity, the ability to recognize who is America, what is America. And then sanctity, what is sacred and why is it sacred? Why is it untouchable? That requires logic, for the most part. Emotion can play a role. You can be a reactionary and consider something sacred. That much is true. But you can't really be a reactionary and conserve tradition, because you need logic for that. Now, I want to address the issue of conservatorship versus progress. Now, conservatorship is the practice of placing something under your protection to preserve and keep it for the next generation. Now, conservatorship versus progress. Progress is change. That is changing things in order to make things better, in order to make improvements. This can be a good thing. However, not all change is progress. All progress is change, but not all change is progress. Sometimes change takes us back. Take, for example, when colorblindness was the major issue of racism and how they were going to address it. But now that colorblindness is seen as racist by the far left, they actually reintroduced segregation, deciding that it was different from past segregation simply because the motive changed. They actually regressed as opposed to progressed. This happened in Evergreen University here in the state of Washington. Evergreen began segregating white students from black students and allowed black students to take a vacation away from their white peers as a kind of progress, which was actually regressing back to the segregation days of the 1950s. It was a full backstep. But because of their blind motives, they didn't even realize that they were literally walking back decades of progress. So not all change is progress. They didn't make anything better, they actually made it worse. And really, when you place progress under the realm of conservatorship, the progressives create progress, and they prove that it is better, that the changes they made are better, and they did progress. We can take these new traditions and place them under conservatorship and protect them. When you get rid of segregation and make anti-segregation and togetherness the new standard with progress, we can take that and place it under conservatorship, and look, we've created a new tradition. And that's how it should have been. That way, we should have kept it that way. They took it out of conservatorship violently. And we should not have allowed them to do it. Absolutely not. This is what tradition is. We are preserving the past to secure it for the future because it is right, it is good, it has worked then, it is still working, it is working now, and it should work in the future. It creates our identity, it is who we are. That is tradition. Progress can become tradition. And those traditions which end up being bad or wrong, we can take them out of our conservatorship and leave them to the progressives to change. And then when they change them and create something new, we can replace that empty hole in tradition with the new progressive idea. That is how we should do it. It should be a tit for tat. Progressives and conservatives should be friends, not enemies. They can say, release this thing from your conservatorship, It's evil. We can prove it. I'm like, okay, show us your proof. We proved it. It's evil. Okay, we will release it from our conservatorship. Change it for us, and we'll take the result of your progress and make that the new tradition, and we'll place that under our conservatorship. That would be fucking wonderful, wouldn't it? That'd be great. But we don't do it that way. We should. And that is how tradition evolves. It is not static. It is not unchanging. Tradition is what you do because it worked then, it's still working now, and you want to preserve that for future generations. That is what tradition is. Tradition can change, and all you have to do is reveal some flaw in it, and then we can fix that flaw. Now, economics issues, right versus left. Now, left-wing economics are largely about care and fairness and change, progress, i.e. giving a greater advantages to marginalized groups. The problem with this is that it tends to generate large-scale inflation over time. We can only manage it so much, right? Yes, it makes people better and it creates greater equality of opportunity, and sometimes even equality of outcome to some extent. But equality of opportunity is of higher value. But not over a long period. Short term, yes. Long term, no. Short term, it can create. Long term, it can create problems. It creates inflation. It creates debt. It creates ownness. Meanwhile, right-wing economics are largely about, again, conservatorship. Let's not spend the money right now. Let's make sure we have money for the future when we really need it, and focus that money on things we do need right now. So let's say instead of spending $5 on a candy bar because you're impatient, you can't wait to get home and you got to eat right now, or you can spend that $5 on a nice healthy meal that you have to wait to take it home in order to eat it. Which of these is the higher priority? The candy bar or the cooked meal that is better for you? The answer is the cooked meal. You need the cooked meal. So you wait and you spend the money the correct way. You put it where it belongs and you save the rest. That is more or less conservative economics. Let us make sure that the money grows in value, that the value of the mighty dollar increases, thus lifting people up out of poverty because their dollar goes further now that it's worth more. And that you're spending it the right way, i.e. on things that have real value. Things that are not a priority do not get spent on. So this is the big difference. Conservatives are much better at running systems and governing systems, and progressives are better at finding out what's wrong with them and changing them. But when you leave the progressives in charge of the pre-existing system, all they can do is continue to find problems with it, and they have a hard time running it. Progressives create large-scale inflation, long-term problems, debt increases, and all because of care and fairness. You didn't consider the consequences of helping others. It's right and it's good and it's wholesome that you're trying to help others, but you didn't care about the long-term consequences, and you created a new problem which now we have to fix. That is why you let the conservatives run the system. They're just better at it. Now, as to the issue of reactionaries and why they are so dangerous and why they're predominantly left-wing, the number of reactionary militant groups are right-wing are outnumbered by the ones that are left-wing. But predominantly right now, the most important ones are Antifa and BLM for the far left and QAnon for the far right. Antifa is short for anti-fascist. They believe that they are against fascism. However, their tactics and strategy closely resembles the early rise of fascism and Hitler and the Nazis. They are more like the fascists than they are different from them. This largely is because many so-called anti-fascists, so-called, are echo chamber dwellers. They rarely get challenged. They reject outside narratives. They don't want to listen. They don't want to hear. They don't realize that they're more like fascists than we are. They're very authoritarian. They shut down free speech. They don't allow people to speak. They're probably going to flag this video if they hear me. They're going to flag the hell out of it. They're going to try to get rid of me because they don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be held accountable. And BLM, or Black Lives Matter, they're outraged over the deaths of unarmed black Americans. Unarmed Americans of all races are getting killed. That's the problem, though. A lot of the time when they try to say that it's all racism, they oftentimes fail to present actual evidence of racist intent. The police are incompetent. They kill people all the time, and they shouldn't. They should be held accountable. But BLM is making it into a race issue where it probably isn't. They support CRT and other things. BLM is just as bad as Antifa because they use a lot of the same tactics, and they do not want to be challenged. They are far-left extremists who use violence and threats to get so-called justice, when they half the time they don't even know what the fuck's going on. They're classic reactionaries, both BLM and Antifa. They're perfect examples of the danger of left-wing reactionaries. You have no idea. The major right-wing group, you may be familiar with them, they were responsible for 1/6, is QAnon. Now, QAnon is an interesting group. I have personally spoken with them. I have contacted with them on Gab, trying to figure out what the fuck they're all about when I was on Gab. I'm not there anymore because the whole environment of the place is just fucking toxic. The far right are just as bad as the far left. Like, some of them are racist Nazis, but most of the QAnoners are neo-satanic panickers. They're hyperactive, evangelical, dispensational Christians that think that outside the realm of Christendom, everything is satanic and inherently evil. Everything is out to corrupt your children. There's satanic pedophile cannibal rapists in government and in the world and everywhere. They think Jeffrey Epstein was one of them. They think Hillary Clinton was one of them. There's this thing called pedogate. Just insane conspiracy theories about people supposedly kidnapping your children, raping them, and then eating them, and then hailing Satan. If QAnon were to take control, we would see a second satanic panic in this country. And believe me, some people didn't make it through the first one. It wasn't just this cute little, oh, if you play the song backwards, you hear a satanic message. No. It went way deeper than that. You see, there's a psychoanalyst, right? His name was Lawrence Pasder. Lawrence Pasder. Remember that name. He brings in this chick called Michelle, who is experiencing some unknown, unregistered psychological trauma. Can't figure it out. So he puts her under hypnotherapy, right? But he asks her a lot of leading questions that taint the memory, right? Because memory is not perfect. It is not infallible. Memories can be changed unintentionally through the use of leading questions that cause the person to imagine a scenario based on the question they were asked. And that can taint the memory and change it, especially under hypnosis. He taints Michelle's memories and comes up with this insane narrative that she was raped and sexually molested, and the babies that popped out of her were sacrificed to Satan, supposedly. And he creates this whole story and writes a book called Michelle Remembers. People read Michelle Remembers, create this insane notion, and they start doing the hypnotherapy on children who are experiencing bizarre behavior, which is not unusual for children. They have nightmares. They're afraid of the dark. They're experiencing the emotion of fear for the very first time, and it's all new to them. And their imaginations run wild, and they go crazy. So it's not that unusual. But these people don't seem to realize that. They take these kids aside, and they do the exact same thing they did with Michelle. And then they create this whole insane narrative about recovered memories of supposed satanic ritual abuse, the physical evidence of which was literally non-existent. None of it ever happened. And that was the satanic panic. And the accusations literally ruined people's lives. They went to prison for shit they never even did. That was the Satanic Panic. And it was all powered by the insanity of superstitious Christians. QAnoners are superstitious Christians, and many of them are ex-Satanic Panickers from the first time around. I guarantee you, QAnon gets to any kind of power in society, you're going to see that bullshit again. There will be a second Satanic Panic, mark my words. And QAnon will be right there at the center of all of it. They're just as crazy and they're just as bad as Antifa and BLM for a completely different reason. They're also reactionaries. They hear about some of the insane things that politicians sometimes say, because yes, they can be hella creepy, and they can say crazy things. And that will lead many to these conclusions about evil satanic pedophiles coming to rape, murder, and eat your children and sacrifice their hearts to Beelzebub. And that sort of creates QAnon. This conspiracy theory where they make a mountain out of a molehill, that just because politicians are sometimes creepy and Joe Biden likes to sniff hair and they're not okay around kids sometimes, that becomes this whacked out conspiracy theory. And a lot of them believe Michelle remembers, even though that book has been widely debunked. Widely. So anyway, that's just some of the dangers of reactionaries. I'm sorry if I scared you at all. Please don't have any trouble getting to sleep tonight, thinking that a QAnon or an Antifa is going to come busting through your window and like drag you off to jail or something, or to hang you. Anyway, in the link description below, I'll link the CBC podcast about the Satanic Panic so you can research that. That is extremely sickening. There'll also be a link below to my books. Please download, download, and read them. Anyway, choose. Welcome to the Reformation.